But we've been tested for COVID, don't worry.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, my pleasure. Everybody bow to royalty there.
Absolutely.
We all know the great Lisa Borders has been fantastic. It's been what a great way to close. Drop the mic. I love the quote. We made much more money talking about
selling crack than we ever made selling crack.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And to that point, every artist and every professional athlete with a B in front of their name now, or next to their name, billions, didn't make it in professional sports or being an artist. They made that money when they made that jump to business. So they got their rep, they got their credibility, good cash flow, good net worth in the arts and in professional sports. That's called making money. Mm-hmm. That's called getting paid. Mm-hmm. It's even getting wealthy. Getting rich. But they got wealthy when they changed their mindset and went from just that to business.
And that came from a high level of exposure that, as you generate this income or this abundance for yourself, you begin to get into rooms and create relationships that will allow you exposure to certain other aspects of life that have been kept from you when you were, on your, how could I say, ground level.
Yeah.
When you're on the ground level, grassroots of your journey, you know what I'm saying? The more you get, the more you learn. Like you kind of, poor people are shut out of rich people's business all the time.
Oh yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So the more you generate wealth or generate income for yourself, then people will start like letting you into certain secrets and certain things and tools that you could use to get from this level to the next level. It's much easier to become a billionaire from 100 million than it is from 500,000.
Oh, no doubt about it. I mean, and the other side is also true, Tip. If you hang around 9 broke people, you'll be the 10th.
That's right. Yeah.
Whatever you hang around, whatever you model, you'll be.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
And so I love what you guys are talking about changing the role modeling in schools. But let me back up here because we have a living icon with us.
Absolutely.
We've got the last living lieutenant. I'm saying this slow so the audience can really understand. No.
There's still a few more.
No, the senior lieutenant.
He doesn't want to be that.
Dr. King, who is very much alive and engaged. And in fact, I'm trying to slow him down a little bit. But this man is 130 honorary doctorate degrees.
Mm.
How
many countries?
How many countries?
How many countries?
130 honorary doctorate.
130.
152.
152 countries. Okay.
And
I've been blessed.
really made Atlanta.
I've been blessed by my troubles.
That's right.
Really made Atlanta the international city she is today, the only international city in the South. Other mayors have made other contributions, so thanks to everybody. But he's the one who brought the Olympic Games here.
That's right.
He's the one who brought the international investors here with tens of billions of dollars of investment. He's the one who really created the environment where it's now the busiest airport in the world. And it's the only international city in the South. The only one. One of the top 10 MSAs, economic engines for the whole country. The #1 place for black entrepreneurs, business owners, black wealth in the country.
Millionaires.
Millionaires. We have problems. We got challenges. We got folks who are hundredaires who need to become thousandaires, and we can make them have a shot at millionaires. But the opportunity's there. And Atlanta was a city that decided to argue over who got the green, not whether you were black or white. We had a different kind of argument. And I think other folks were backwards and argued over water fountains, and they're still stuck in many of those cities, and they look just like they looked 40 years ago.
We fought for that, too.
Well, we didn't have to fight for it because the business leaders told the public leaders, knock it off.
But that was the fight.
Well, okay, fair enough.
We evolved in our thinking. We matured. We all started at that same place, but Atlanta did not stop there.
White folk like money in Atlanta.
he broke it down even better.
I learned that really early. Like they like money a lot more than they didn't like each other.
There you go.
Right. And that's not to say other cities weren't good, but you can get so entrenched on hate that everybody suffers. Because at the time that they were fighting for unions, these guys in Mississippi, and black workers were saying we should deserve our fair pay, the people who were fighting against that, often white workers who worked right next to them, were the most underpaid white men in America.
Oh, yeah.
And Skip Bayless said this during the NFL controversy. If white players would have knelt or stood in solidarity with Kaepernick, it for the first time in at least 50 years would have given the players the proper leverage against the league to negotiate better. And because they chose not to, for the next 20, 30 years, you'll hear baseball and basketball have more secure, better contracts because the NFL has never solved their solidarity problem, meaning they dislike some of each other's political things a lot more than they like money.
Oppression and hate gonna keep you poor.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
On both sides.
You can't
say that again.
Oppression and hate will keep you poor. That is a broke man's energy.
You cannot,
Everybody.
A broke man's energy. You cannot segregate your heart and integrate your pocket. So going back to you here, Ambassador Young, and really set the stage here, in many ways, we're trying to figure out how do we go from what I call civil rights, a movement of racing the color line in the streets, to a new movement of civil rights, or class and poverty and ownership in the suites. How do we get people today, young people protesting, rightly so, against injustice, to understand they need a business plan and not just an emotional one? They need to respond, not react. How do you get them from the streets, which is their frustrations are rightly so and justified, to transition to the suites?
Well, let me just say that I think of all of you all as my children.
That some of them more troublesome than others.
I've helped.
I told him he was always Lisa and Andrea's daddy before he was Ambassador and Mayor Young.
That's right. And
Bo.
Killer Mike came into my office when he was 15 and wanted to put on a conference for young people and didn't want any adults present. He said, let us talk about our own problems. And T.I. and I go back to, well, one of his teachers was a good friend of mine. And she said, I knew that boy was a genius in first grade. Say, but he was bad. And then John and I have sort of grown up together. I'm sort of like his father.
Yep.
After his father went to glory, he sort of got passed on to me. And I tell you what, you all have made me proud in this forum, as in the last year and as in the work you're doing all the way. But let me go back to my childhood, because I was blessed. And I was blessed because it was a crisis.
By the way, didn't you fight in the civil rights movement with her father, Lisa's father?
Yeah.
Grandfather.
Okay. Yeah. Grandfather. Sorry. Yeah.
But
Tried to put some age on you.
I was in 6th grade when Pearl Harbor started. And we did something that I think kids nowadays could do. We realized that America was at war. And we had to find ways to help the war effort. So we started as kids, 10 years old, picking up coat hangers, getting newspapers, and buying saving stamps and war bonds. And so I had a savings account with a couple of $100 in it. See, in elementary school.
Wow.
Because the classes competed with each other about how much money we could make on weekends. So I went around the neighborhood collecting everybody's newspapers and selling the newspapers. Coat hangers, picking up bottles, cutting grass. And because it wasn't just that we were patriotic, it was that the classes were competing against each other. And I always wanted my class to bring the most money to save us from the war effort and Adolf Hitler. I grew up with the Nazi party on my corner of my house, so Nazism and white supremacy was real to me from 4 years old. And my daddy told me, don't get mad, don't let white supremacists get you upset. If you get mad in a fight, you lose the fight. Don't get mad, get smart. See? And you're going to be little all your life. You're never going to be able to beat up anybody, but if you stay cool, you can think with anybody. And I think that's what I hope now. I hope we take this crisis as we took the Second World War, as an opportunity to bring the economy. We ended up not only bringing our neighborhood economy up together, but we ended up creating a global economy by 1944 for the entire world. And I see this corona crisis as leading us in that direction. And I think what you're doing, Killer Mike, and I'm helping you, working with you with Greenwood. But I think we could go to the grammar schools and let the kids start with bank accounts.
Yes, sir.
That Cox Cable, whenever it puts cable near a school, it always puts cable in the schools, wherever they are. Now, AT&T and Comcast, if they got a cable line going anywhere near a public school, we need to get them to go ahead and wire up that school so that they can be ready for the virtual future.
And by the way, Comcast, which is providing all this infrastructure, has a program where they're giving away computers and internet access to low-wealth communities at no cost to them.
Yeah.
And that needs to be scaled up. Most of us don't even know that program exists, by the way.
I think awareness is key.
Yeah.
And it may exist that they have wired some of our elementary schools. I don't know that. But that's the kind of thing that helps them make money and do good.
Absolutely.
Now, the second thing is education didn't used to cost this much. That my wife got her master's degree at Queens College in New York for $16 a semester. But what that meant was that she was paying taxes on a master's degree salary for the next 60 years. Or 40 years. And UCLA used to be $40 a semester when I was in high school. And I almost went to school out there, but I chose Howard University instead, because I was the only black person on the campus that summer, and I felt lonely. But so I'm saying that we've come a long way. But the way we've gotten here is still an open pathway.
Good point.
And whenever we make up our minds to do the things that, I mean, you had Doug McMillan,
the CEO of Walmart.
CEO of Walmart.
#1 Fortune 500 company, I believe, in the world.
But I've been to Bentonville, Arkansas, and I saw the little store that that Sam Walton started from.
Yep.
And so we know that poor people,
high school education,
have visions, and they can grow the largest business in the world if they have access to capital. Now, our businesses have not had access to capital. And that's what I think you and Greenwood are trying to do. Absolutely. Make available access to capital. When I became mayor, there was a company that had 1,500 employees, and they couldn't get a line of credit from any bank. That was just in 1981. And we had redlining in Atlanta until 1989.
That's right.
And so we can change. With all of the things that have been going on, we didn't work on integrating the money nearly enough. Now, we did it in terms of, affirmative action in the construction of the airport. Minorities got 41% of the Olympic money, and everybody agreed to that. But because we had an Olympics that cost $2.5 billion, another $10 or $15 billion came into Atlanta. And the white community got 90% of that because we were able to get 41%.
Well, as Stephanie Rule would say, expand the table and add a seat.
Money.
What you're saying was, what I'm hearing you saying is, by expanding the economic opportunity, everybody got more.
Everybody got much.
However, he also said that the 10 to 12 billion that came as a result of it, 90% of that went the other way, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but at least black folks got $1 billion. which we didn't have before.
No, see, we got to get out of there.
A
great place to start.
You're
building on that. You're building on that. All of us are building on that.
Yeah, however, we'd be building from a lot greater place if everything was even as it should be.
I'd like to have poverty resolved in the world, too. I'd like for my mother to like me every day of the year.
Let's not... It's not an either or.
Okay, we're off topic.
It's not an either or.
He's still bad.
Back to what you were saying.
It's a both and.
Yeah. It's a both and.
That
well said.
You can look at it as the glass is half full or half empty. And I'd rather see us growing, and I'd rather, in fact, we had a song when I was growing up, accentuate the positive, eliminate the negative, latch on to the affirmative, don't mess with Mr. In Between. That was a white folk song of the Andrews sisters.
Right.
But that became
everybody's stole it from a brother song.
Everybody's song.
Down the line, but go right ahead.
Everybody's song in the Second World War. It united the nation. And you all have done that with We Are the World. And I think we've got to find songs that you all have got to rap about money.
We don't got no problem with that.
You don't have a problem. I'm definitely Andy. This is Hosea.
Well, there were 3 waves to the civil rights movement, right?
But by the way, Malcolm X did come around at the end of his life.
No, Malcolm X was always around.
Yeah, he actually did he hung around Dr. King.
Malcolm X just happened to be born, and his father saw his uncle lynched and ended up going to jail without much education. Martin Luther King was born rich, and his family already had graduate degrees. Yeah. So he was born almost with a PhD opportunity.
Yeah.
But it actually took both of them. It took Martin and Malcolm.
Yeah,
it took both.
I'm so glad y'all said that in an interview earlier this week. I'm so glad that you
takes both.
I knew Malcolm before I knew Martin.
Wow.
Because I was living in New York, see, from 57 to 61. I didn't come down here to Atlanta until 61.
I got to hear that story later.
Yeah.
One day. I need to know that one.
But this is an opportunity.
Yes, sir.
Agreed.
It's an opportunity to restructure the whole global economy.
Agreed.
Starting with our neighborhoods.
Yeah.
I'll tell you why. When I got the call from Ryan to be a part of Greenwood, I've been helping black banks because I was just taught, much like, and that's what you're supposed to do.
Yep.
My great-grandfather's father was using the Tuskegee experiment. Between what my great-grandparents saved sharecropping and some type of settlement, they bought 33 acres in Tuskegee, which we still have today. We make a modest amount of money, a couple $100 a year for me and my sisters, for lumber that gets cut off there. But we were taught banking. Right. We were taught finance kind of all the way and to be responsible for it. So I think that what our community has to understand is, like my grandfather would often say to me, worst thing happened to us was integration. I never understood what he was saying, but he wasn't talking about us physically integrating as much as our dollar.
That's right.
We allowed the dollar to escape, so we didn't have the cornerstone of capitalism, what it takes.
That's right.
And that's the economic sphere. So by him calling, when Ryan them called me, I was interested because I'd done all this free work for banks.
Right.
I hadn't ever went to a bank and said, you give me a certain amount of percentage off each card, which I could have done. I'm savvy enough to say, if I go get you 1 million accounts, give me this. But that wasn't my purpose. Again, I'm the Andy of the crew. I was like, what's going to be better for my community?
Right.
And when Andy told me about how he had saw paper money in India be used essentially like it was used against poor people here, I get a $200 check, I go in, it's 20% to cash that check, then I know that all of a sudden it's $160. $40 has been taken out.
That's right.
Andy had saw a card in India give people a chance to actually keep their money and use their money effectively. And that was a big part of the reason I went with Greenwood, because I said on base level, much like my grandparents walked me in to get my first bank account, they bought Coca-Cola and Delta stock for me because those companies were here.
Yep.
I should have kept them forever, cashed them out at 18, dumb. Like I said, you're just too dumb when you're young. Yeah, man. And what I understand now is that if I can help a child that's growing up in my neighborhood, same neighborhood, I still own real estate, neighborhoods my sisters still are, to understand money at 10, 11, 12, like I understood it. Yep. And my grandparents made me pay for half of my first pair of Adidas. If I get that understanding of that kid, then that kid who's a potential water boy on the side of the street or a shoe cleaner, sneaker cleaner in the mall, grows to have an entrepreneurial mindset. And people think it's always about, I'm making a Madam C.J. Walker, I'm making an Alonzo Herndon, but they forget about the 200 people under them that were employed.
That's right.
The 200 families that were enriched, the 200, the 400-600 people that were better educated. I'm here in part not only because I've had great mentorship in people like Andy or Irvin Young, but my family was full of nurses and working class men, and I had one cousin who's like an aunt named June. And being a simple nurse wasn't good enough for her like everybody else. She went and got the high, I think she became an anesthesiologist at the end, just right under a doctor, but she stressed education to her son, my other cousin and I, who grew up right there in Tow together. So all of us ended up, my cousin, her son went to Purdue, my other cousin went to Savannah State, I ended up going to Morehouse, and there was this friendly competition between us because of the exposure was right there in my family, the exposure to what money could do. And Andy introduced me to what that car did in India. It was there. So I'm a part of Greenwood as an initiative because I know that those lessons aren't given early enough. And as we as an institution can provide that and grow into an institution that has lending and gives capital to black people, I know that we stand a chance in this.
Let me go back to one thing that you were saying about slavery and give you another point of view.
Okay.
There were 27 black millionaires in Louisiana before the Civil War. And W.E.B. Du Bois talks about that in Black Reconstruction. But when you really know your black history, you realize that the founding fathers were a very thin layer of very educated and brilliant men. But all other white people weren't like that.
That's right.
Most of them came from urban areas in Europe.
That's right.
Where they had no education, no understanding of farming. See? The slaves who came here, all of them had been living on the land.
Agricultural geniuses.
There had been,
and not indentured servants.
There had been universities in Africa since 1100. So long before they were in Europe. If you go back to Egypt, even before the Old Testament, they built the pyramids. And if you go to Cairo and see who built the pyramids, the pharaoh who built the pyramids, they don't even have him on the main floor. They have him in the basement. You know why? He's a short black guy with an afro and a big nose and nice luscious lips. See? And so the black people who came here as slaves didn't come here with no talent.
That's right.
That's right.
I mean, Frederick Douglass was a slave.
And a businessman.
But he became a businessman. He taught himself to read. He created the Freedmen's Bank with Abraham Lincoln.
Yep.
And he was one of the leading politicians. He is truly one of our founding fathers.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely.
And so we have never been just victims.
No, not
the
at all.
South could not have survived without us knowing how to plant cotton, and with George Washington Carver developing the peanut
I agree.
and the sweet potato.
The richest city in the world was not just Mississippi, 1850.
That's right.
I agree with all that. I agree with all that.
No, but I'm saying that the only way we were kept down was through physical violence.
Right.
See, and whenever we accumulated something, they found a way to take it from us.
This is true.
And that's why you've got to have the politics and the economics and the education and the spirituality all coordinated.
But you know why, Ambassador Young, sometimes I think that when Tip's talking, sometimes it's Tip talking, sometimes it's T.I. talking. And when it's T.I. talking, he's channeling the voice of tens of millions of frustrated people who may not be patient enough to hear, turn the other cheek, whatever the message is. And he's trying to, I think, give them voice in their frustrations voice. At the same time, Tip is saying, now that said, you can't react to this, you got to respond. And Tip's the one that owns the real estate on the west side. And,
sure.
Tip's one that has a multicultural
interchangeable. You know, T.I. and Tip and T.I. I can't tell them the difference no more. Yeah. But I can't tell them apart. But what I'm saying is, all these things considered, all these things being as true as they are, there is no reason, absolutely no reason, we should sit back and continue to be marginalized and left out of the financial discussion when it is our efforts that made this country what it is right now.
So what I see is what the teacher saw, the genius in first grade.
That's right.
See? And what John has put together here, and remember, Lisa was sort of the one that pulled together the Women's Basketball League.
President of WNBA.
And my wife did.
Yeah.
I'm like,
so she's the women's Roger Goodell.
Yeah.
But we've had, what I've seen here just this morning is potentially the answer to not only black people's problems, but to the world's problems.
That's right.
And it's the coming together of public, private, spiritual and secular, and working together to deal with whatever problems. And John, what you've helped us to do is see problems as opportunities. You don't make money till you got a problem. And then whoever figures out how to solve that problem makes the money.
That's
and
right.
There you go.
It can be not only at the Frederick Douglass or the John Adams, and Thomas Jefferson was not that good a businessman, but he was a brilliant writer and poet. See, but
intellectual.
It all has come together to make a great nation with all of its problems. And this crisis calls us to be the best that we can be, whoever we are. And if we do that and do it together, these problems that we face now become opportunities that create a new future all over the globe.
I'm gonna make my final comments, and I think everybody should say a final comment. Then Lisa's going to wrap this up. I think it's been an incredible 2 days, by the way. So thank everybody for leaning in and being a part of this. I'm getting notes from all around the world, and there's been watch parties all around the world. But I'm going to leave my last comments with two pieces of Andrew Young, Ambassador Andrew Young wisdom. And the first one is, and I think it speaks to a lot of what we've been talking about here. Ambassador Young has taught me that in a crisis, everybody has to win. So how do I translate that? Talk without being offensive. Listen without being defensive. Here's a big one now. Always, and I mean always, leave even your adversary with their dignity. Because if you don't, they'll spend the rest of their life trying to make you miserable. Because now it's become personal. You can't even solve the original problem because now they feel rightly or wrongly offended. They feel insulted. Now they might be completely wrong, but now you stepped on their dignity, and now you got to fight. And if you just leave everybody with find a gracious way to leave people with their dignity and a gracious way out of their own ignorance, they might turn that storm into a rainbow, because you cannot have a rainbow without a storm first. This leads me to my last piece of Ambassador Young wisdom. I said this at the beginning. I'm going to end it with this. Ambassador Young was running. He was a young man trying to figure out who he was. He was, I think, just going into divinity school. He'll correct me, of course, if I get this wrong. And he's on this run, Tip, and he's running up the mountain, down the mountain, and up the mountain. And he thought that running and energy was enough to work out his frustration. So he's running. Think about an angry man. He's running. He gets there at the top of the mountain. He's exhausted now. He's got to stop because he's exhausted. He's out of breath. He's forced to sit for a minute with himself. He looks around. He says the clouds have a purpose. The plants have a purpose. The rocks have a purpose. The ground underneath him has a purpose. The birds have a purpose. Everything around him, in the quietness of that moment, when he's drained of his aggression and his anger and his frustration, when he's at peace, he's communing with God, everything has a purpose. He said, my God, if all that has a purpose, I must have one. I must be valuable. let me now figure out what my purpose is. If we could help people who are wayward, who are lost, who may be rich but not wealthy. In other words, they got money but they don't have a purpose. Maybe they're making a lot of money. Maybe they're a billionaire, squillionaire, but they feel hollow inside, but they can't admit it to anybody. Maybe we can find a gracious way for some of them to redeem themselves in the eyes of whoever they admire, to do good for others. Who knows? I don't know. It's none of my business. That's between them and God. But whoever it is, wherever they are, a good person, bad person, we can find people, give people a gracious way towards redemption. I think a saint is a sinner that got up. We're all sinners. We all fall short of the glory of God. We've all screwed up yesterday. Like I said, I love my mother. She didn't like me last week. Today. Yeah, let's do it. Now let's do it today. So let's wrap it up, and then Lisa will drop the mic. Killer Mike.
Oh, man, I'm just happy to be here, John. I'm happy to be here with Andy, you, Lisa, my friend Tip. I'm doing what I'm called to do. I really just got in this to sing, dance for a living, smoke a little marijuana, go to the Blue Flame for free. You know, I thought my life was going to be pretty simple. I had escaped activism after I left college and got a record deal. And,
by the way, you both married, right?
Yeah, we're both married. Yeah. And my wife, and the better business part of our marriage, who also attends every Blue Flame occasion with me, that woman is just brilliant. Like I say, her grandmother ran a shot house, so she thought about coin earlier than I did. Compared to her, my sisters and I were middle class. But what I've learned is that black folks can, we must, we will. I am proud to be a black American. I'm proud of going to Frederick Douglass High School, because it was there I first heard the term, without struggle there can be no progress. While there, I learned that was the most photographed man of the 19th century. Meaning, so if you think about Barack Obama, how many times you've seen his picture, that's who Frederick Douglass is comparable to in terms of the spread. And that ain't just popular on the plantations and black communities. So through mentorship with people like Andy, James Orange, Alice Johnson, what I've learned is that we're far more a tapestry than we are what we describe sometimes ourselves as a suit, where everybody's just kind of in.
Yes.
But a tapestry is something sewn together. And I still have the blankets that my grandmother sewed, my great-grandmother sewed in my home. And so this country, for me, is a tapestry. It is cooperating. And I talk to Tony Rexler as much as I talk to my friend T.I.
Right. Yeah.
T.I. and I, who sang and danced, decided to go into business together. And I hope that at the end of my run, that I would have led a life that he could be proud of for having mentored, that my children can be proud of, that my wife will be proud of, and that my community will be proud to say they produce.
Amen. Man on that.
Right on.
T.I.?
Well, at 40 years old, just turned 40 September 25th, remembering how it felt to be reminded that as a teenager, that I was in the percentile of the most likely to fail.
Yeah, I used to tell him.
Whether
a lot.
The most likely. You know how many times I heard that from 13 to 19?
Wow.
Man, statistically speaking, you probably not going to be here by 21. So have a good run. You know what I'm saying? So that's the way the stage was kind of set for me, whether that was, going to a school and hearing it, the bus driver, neighbors, whomever. So going from that, defying the odds, overcoming adversity in all shapes, forms, and fashions, I believe the first I don't think I would have been here if I would not have dropped out of school. Not telling kids to drop out of school. However, I feel that conformity that came with doing it their way would have stopped me from seeing it how to do it my way. And nobody could have taught me through education or anything else. Nobody in that institution could have taught me how to do what I'm doing right now.
Well, you're in good company. Because Bill Gates.
That's right.
And Ted Turner dropped out.
That's right. Well, and Kanye too, except they dropped out of college. See, I dropped out of Douglass High School, and I. But what I'm saying is,
like a college.
Which was like a college, absolutely. It was definitely HBCU. But the thing is, making it here against our odds to be here at 40. And on top of that, the BTI, that says to me, I can get to be 140. and be, and be just as successful and just as peaceful, just as honest, just as outspoken, just as genuine, just as principled in my wealth as I have been, coming up through the ranks. And I also want to say I have absolutely no problem whatsoever with the opinions of racist, poor white people. No, I do not. They are entitled to their opinions. I have absolutely no problem with it. They are not my problem. If we could find a way, if I could do something to help them get some money, I would. See, my problem is with the institutional, systemic racism that comes from the people who have been put in power, who can use their opinions against my children, your children, to keep us from, allowing our efforts and ingenuity to represent us before the color of our skin. You know what I'm saying? Those are that's who I have a problem with. A poor white person who can't even do as much for himself as I can, I don't have a problem with that. But if you have someone whose decisions and whose opinions will dictate and determine the pathway of our children and our communities, and they have an innate, inherent disregard for the lives, liberties, heritage, and progression of our people. That's my problem.
In this particular moment, you remind me of me and Ambassador Andrew Young. Me because as I think about your infrastructure, the young lady who's with you today, the other people I've seen working for you, all of our people are college educated, upset, people who work for us, who help us move, they're all steeped in education. So yeah, we can do whatever we want because we were a singular, talent or whatever. But everybody can't be T.I. And everybody can't be literally me, John O'Brien. But they can be engineers, business managers. Right? So that's the scalable model for our people. And if we look at our organizations, they don't run if a bunch of us run around flossing and glossing.
That's right.
You need people who can do a balance sheet and run some numbers.
That's right.
The second thing, I don't mean the numbers, I mean business numbers. I don't mean number. So the second thing,
we can break the numbers too now. Let's not get away.
I'm always so hurt.
Hey, it was the number runners.
Don't hate on the numbers. That's right. That was actually
number runners
that was your father.
Paid for the buses and
I know. Here we go. Let's go. Let's go. Another 5 minutes. Yes. I know. Drop the mic.
Number runners. They made sure. And Mark.
Yeah, I got it. All right. I got it.
Down in the middle
of
the
done, y'all.
The second point.
We are off topic. The
second point. Hold on.
Kicked out of Douglas.
The second point is that you remind me of Dr. King and Ambassador Young because Dr. King said, I refuse to disobey an unjust law. Yeah. So Dr. King was a version of what you're saying. He went there and he got loud. He got noisy. He went and intentionally disobeyed an unjust law to get the attention so that Andrew Young could quiet. He never wanted this man arrested. Ever. Put on a business suit after we shut down the economy. After the sun, go cut a deal. Go meet with 100 business leaders behind closed door. Get those whites only signs down. Because the business leaders are hurting in their pockets.
That's right.
So it was a strategy.
Right.
Set it up and pay it off.
Right.
That's all I'm saying is we need to have a plan and a strategy because anger is not a strategy.
Plot, plan, strategize, organize. Then mobilize.
Amen.
That is not just for marching. That is for business.
Yeah.
That's for how you run your house.
Right.
That is for everything. Plot, plan, strategize. Plot it out. Think about it. Will it work? Then plan it out yourself. You strategize with other people.
Yeah.
The people that didn't drop out come and say, well, this is why that won't work.
Or the people that did just have a gift from God.
Then you organize and then you mobilize.
That's
then
right.
you send Andy in with a suit to cut the deal.
That's it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, Lisa, what tough job you have?
After all of that.
The floor you have.
So let me thank everyone, not only this final panel, because we have all been not only educated, but frankly enlightened. I think by the folks that are here, the generations of knowledge, those who bled, sweated in the fields of what was going on for all these years, and those who continue the struggle, who continue to understand that it's not over, and it's not going to be over anytime soon. But we all understand that America is a democracy, but it's an experiment. It's an experiment. It's like a diamond. It's made under pressure. And today, America is in one of those moments when she is under pressure. And she calls on all of her citizens, black, white, whatever, to come in and help. And a house divided, as you said, from Abraham Lincoln cannot stand. So this moment calls all of us to account. There are no two Americas. There's only one. It is up to us to get our internal struggle together. So we hope, those of you who are watching, that you learned some things today. We hope that we brought inspiration and hope to each and every one of you, to all of our sponsors, and everyone who helped make this virtual annual meeting possible. We thank you. This has been more than we could have ever imagined. So on behalf of the board, as well as our founder, chairman, and CEO, please allow us to thank you for being so supportive and for appreciating the work that we're trying to do. Financial literacy, economic empowerment, it's not a black issue, it's not a white issue, it's an American green issue. And we look forward to continuing this work until we work ourselves out of business, because that means the problem has been solved.
Get down.
Can I?
Your next album.
Can I have a closing prayer?
Please.
Do whatever you like.
And the prayer really is what you were talking about, the realization that I came to on the top of that mountain. It was that the kingdom of God is within you, and you, and you, and you, and you, and all of those that we meet, that we are created in the image and in the plan of the creator of the universe. And the more we go within, the better we can do without. And we will see each other as God sees us. And Jesus, one of his messages was, the kingdom of God is within you. And so all of the work that you do, however you do it, is an expression of the creativity of the God that created the whole universe.
Wow.
And just like the stars don't bump into each other, we can learn to get along and each do our duty as the Master taught. Amen.
Amen.
Let the church say amen.
Everybody